So this is Somme 1918 by Nuts Publishing. The English turn that I've just done, the first operational sequence of the first turn, was a lot quicker than the Germans, as you might expect, because they were doing a lot less thinking about fighting and a lot more thinking about how to withdraw. The main points for them were trying to re-establish some sort of defences in certain areas. They've moved to try and garrison Arras. They couldn't quite get these elite Canadians there, but they've moved to try and create some defences around the city. They've still got a line here because there wasn't much of an attack. Where there was a breakthrough here, they couldn't get that much there, but there was a breakthrough by a German unit in here, and they've managed to surround that and give him a bit of a shoeing. So it cost them some tanks and some elite infantry, but they have now got him locked into a very bad place. So that's quite successful. Further down the front, the other really key points for the British were to protect their Army headquarters, because I don't think you get them back. If they get wiped out, they're wiped out. So 3rd Army HQ is back here. It's got an infantry division protecting it. It's got some tanks screening it, so it can't just be mugged. And similarly, 5th Army HQ pulled back behind the Somme River here with some troops guarding the bridge, so it's kind of screened. There's stuff around to try and prevent this German breakthrough. And there are zones of control, so these Germans are going to have to mop up before they can move forward, but it again prevents that HQ just from being jumped. And there was some successful withdrawals by the British over here, so they pulled out of their trenches to stop themselves from getting sort of surrounded and cut off, and tried to get behind this river line where they could, or control bridges across this major river. Now the Germans can throw down pontoons, so they may well, drop a pontoon bridge across here or across here to try and aid their advance, or across here. So there's lots of intrigue, and quite interesting terrain with these river lines and bridges and so on. So the combat's interesting, the terrain's interesting, the situation's interesting. It's a really promising game, actually. I'm enjoying it and enthused by it. So great, we're going into the second operational sequence of turn 1, which means I think we get a weather roll. Let's do that now. Quick weather roll to see where we're at. I'm set up for this. I think it's 2 dice. Let's put some dice in here. We've got an 8. What does 8 mean? Come on, charts and tables, tell me what an 8 means. It means typos. It means where are we? I can't even. Weather. There we go. God damn it. Overcast in March, fair in April. I think that's March. Overcast is the weather, and what that means is that we can't fly air missions right now. Okay. It also means that we get the first rain result in here. And when we get to 5 rain results, we get flooded plains. Which means that flooded plains hexes all the way up the Somme River, up here, these kind of blue hexes flood, and down here. And become much more difficult to move through and fight in. So I think the The British want it to rain as much as possible, please. Yeah. The fact that it's overcast means you can't fly air missions. I haven't really explained air combat at all. So both sides put their air units into the available supports box, and at the start of a turn we roll a dice, a single dice, and we modify it by how many planes each side has got, and the Red Baron gives the Germans a -1 because the Germans want low and the Allies want high, and so on. And the modified dice roll is checked against this table. And this turn we rolled a 5, which was modified by, ended up with a -4 and became a 1. That gave 1 German air support. So we got 1 German plane available for air support, which could fly some sort of mission. It could do reconnaissance, it could try bombing, stuff like that. Yes, which can give you improvements on, for example, on your tactical coordination rolls. You can commit air units, and that recon can better coordinate your units in and around the enemy. That's quite cute mechanism. I enjoy that kind of concept. It's telling a story, and they can't do it because it's overcast. End of the German second sequence here in the first turn at the Somme, and the big German breakthrough in the centre here at St Quentin has gathered pace. There were a few wounded, battered divisions that were just slowing things down, but they got mopped up, and now you can see there are German divisions right up against the Somme here near 5th Army headquarters. It's all looking a bit threatening, and there ain't much around in the way of cavalry to get in their way, unfortunately. I mean, the 5th Army headquarters is at least stacked with some pretty elite units to defend it, but this isn't ideal at all. So the British have got a job on here to try and create any sort of defence at all. You can see they've got scattered sort of units like that. That's a German under that reorganisation. They've got this bridge held, but that's about it. The Germans can construct pontoons, construct a pontoon straight across here and bypass this bridge anyway. So yeah, you can see there's a great weight of troops massing to exploit all this space in here, unless the British can get something in the way. Up around Arras, the defending has been a lot more successful. You can see even here the British entrenched British position fought off the Germans to something of a standstill. I mean, they took losses, but they stopped any sort of breakthrough. Similarly up here there's now a stalemate where everyone's disorganised and wounded, and neither side's got the strength to do anything, which suits the British just fine. If they can create stalemates where the Germans can't attack, then that suits them just fine. So they've held this line at least for now, and the Germans haven't really committed up here. They committed all their sort of reserve markers down here to exploit this space, and didn't really focus up here. So the Brits now have, a relatively easy job keeping this stable. As far as I can tell, they've got quite an effective line in here right now, although there are German troops that could move up and try to attack again, but I don't much want to throw resources at a losing proposition. I'd rather exploit where I've got space, and so we want to swing in behind these kind of difficult choke points and try and just surround them rather than wasting troops attacking them frontally. Anyway, the Brits have got to try and organise some sort of defence down here, and the British turns don't take that long, so hopefully I can get through that reasonably quickly. I've done the British sequence. Canadians have pulled down into a position to to stem any breakthrough here and protect Arras, an attack on Arras from the south with some artillery backing them up. Some withdrawals around here just to try and reorganise. The British thought about an attack into that German unit, but thought better of it. And further down here we've had a withdrawal out of the trench positions here, just leaving that victory place open, but it was going to be untenable in terms of supply very quickly. So they've pulled back as far as they can with some good rolls, some 5s and 6s with some bonuses for being in trenches. That's allowed them to withdraw out of there in good order, although they still have a doomed I think division under that reorganisation market, who's will be put out of supply and eventually destroyed. Control of this bridge, and then just an attempt to string something out along this river line just to stop an immediate crossing, so at least there are sort of zones of control blocking down here, and then 2 hexes apart there's zones of control, just although something can rock up into that forest hex, but that's a little bit more awkward because it's adding movement points to try and get through. And then French control down here with their headquarters down there. So this area, again, there was an attempt to pull out by this 36th Division, and it managed to pull out, but there are 2 British divisions here sort of locked into combat with nowhere really to go, with a river behind them, and they're going to get swallowed up, I think, unfortunately, and there's really no way to save them. A bit like the guy in here, there's really no way to save him. And they might do more good just digging in, holding for as long as they can, and wait for the cavalry to arrive, hopefully, at some point. So that's the British done. We're going into the German third sequence for the Germans, who are pushing forward, probably out of the range of their artillery support now, so things will slow down for them until they can get themselves ready. So they probably want to reorganise as much as they can to try and get ready for their offensive at the beginning of next turn. So that's what they're looking to do, just to sort of not necessarily attack this turn, but set up attacks for a new offensive at the start of turn 2. German moves done here in sequence 3 in Somme 1918, and not gone into combat yet, but you can see the Germans have got a real struggle up here in this Arras sector. This is not a pushover, and a lot of the seemingly elite British forces and Commonwealth forces are up here. Got some very tough Canadians, got some Guard infantry in there, got some very tough division in there. There's some good quality troops around here, whereas this what started out as a very thin line completely caved in, and you can see the front is now right up against the Somme River here. The Germans have thrown a pontoon bridge down and crossed over it there. They're forcing their way right up here. What's also interesting is how the British artillery has managed to just withdraw because there hasn't been enough pressure in this sector that the Germans have been able to put on. So they've still got plenty of artillery. Well, not plenty, but they've got pretty much all their artillery still providing support, and this has got out safely. Whereas down here there's no British artillery whatsoever. It all got swallowed up. But the other thing is the German artillery just can't keep up with this the front moving this quickly. So all the German artillery is lagging way behind, way back here. They just can't get it up to support. And that is going to seriously affect them when it comes to playing another offensive chit, because they're going to struggle to find an army artillery unit that's actually relevant to play an offensive chit on. This part of the front is just a sort of sacrificial lamb as far as the British are concerned. That's just a slow down. So yeah, in terms of benefiting from an offensive chit next turn, the Germans can't reuse, they can't play an offensive chit on an army artillery asset that they 2 turns in a row. So this one up here would be the perfect one to use again, only that's not allowed. So they're going to have to find a different artillery unit. It's got to be a 3-1, not these 2-2 corps level artillery. It's got to be a 3-1 army artillery. And so yeah, they're going to have to. I mean, there's one in there, but is that where they're wanting to launch an offensive in here? Not really. They want an offensive up there, but you know. So that's gonna really hamper them next turn. Likewise, even just using artillery to break an offensive to break this lot down so that they can attack into the wide open space over here would be nice. But again, there is a 3-1 artillery, but it's in just the wrong spot. For doing that, it's right at the northern edge of all these troops, rather than bang in the centre of them, which is where they'd much prefer it. So yeah, I've really not done that particularly well either in terms of planning for offensives next turn. But there's just no way to keep pace with a breakthrough like this. So that's where we're at. The Germans have got to pick some combats. I'm now using some markers for combat, so I've pulled these out of Serbian Mushterbian to mark up all the planned combats and then run through them, and the whole thing's running a lot quicker and smoother than that first turn where I was really struggling. End of the first turn here at Somme 1918 then. We've made it through a turn. It feels like 3 turns. It really is 3 turns, because you have to play 3 of these operational sequences when there's a offensive, and there's going to be an offensive for the first 3 turns. So each one of those is more like a turn. It's a whole full set of move, combat, exploitation, withdrawal, and then the other side's move, combat. It's like an OCS turn, each one of those sequences. So we've actually played sort of 3 turns, but anyway, it's the first turn. The Germans have made, so you can see, progress past San Quentin, perhaps 30 kilometres or so of ground there, been stopped somewhat in their tracks in this area and faced heavy resistance up around Arras, where the fighting's been pretty fierce. Casualties, Germans, a division, 1, 2, 3, 4 regiments, and a few Stosstruppen, and the British 4 infantry divisions, 5 infantry divisions, and artillery, and some tanks. So yeah, the British casualties have mounted up. It's going to be interesting to see what's going to be in and out of supply now. I think the British have managed to keep everything, supply routes open. I'm fairly sure that this stack of elite Germans down here has advanced far too far in the wrong direction, though, and is now going to be out of supply because the British control this bridge. So they're going to have some fun and games to get those guys back in supply before they're destroyed for being out of supply. So yeah, anyway, the first turn's been a lot of fun. It's a question of maintaining the momentum and trying to keep pushing on. Second turn, we'll start seeing some significant French presence starting to arrive, as well as some New Zealanders. Start to see some more French divisions and artillery arrive. Some more Germans as well. Few Brits. And then turn 3 sees a very, very heavy French arrival, as you can see there, as well as some Canadians, and no Germans at all. But the Germans' reinforcements have arrived more by event. They've got the Mars and Valkyrie events that they can play, which bring their reinforcements on. So that's what we're looking forward to, and yeah, I have no idea how this is going. I don't feel like I've made fantastic progress with the Germans. They've not been sweeping everything before them, and they really have not had great combat rolls in this first turn. They've been rolling 4s and 5s, which is pretty ugly on the combat table, even when you've got 3-4 to 1 odds. Rolling 4s and 5s, you take a bit of a hammering, and with that combined with the fact the British have been rolling 5s and 6s and 4s are good rolls on their tactical withdrawal, and that allows them to withdraw, trade hexes for casualties, and the Germans have taken a lot of hits on things and the British have been taking fewer and trading them off for space and time. So you can see, for example, in there, you can see stacks of Germans with white stripes across them all where they've just been taking casualties. You know, up here, divisions that have taken casualties all the way through the line. There's a lot of these German casualties all littering all over the place. And I don't think there's any mechanism to rebuild them. You can rebuild destroyed divisions, but never up to full strength is my understanding. I need to check that, but I don't think there's any way of sort of allocating points to them to flip them back to full strength. So once they're damaged, they're gone. So I think this has probably been a success for the Allies. Also because the Allies still have a tenuous but viable line here. You know, they've got control of this sector bounded by these rivers still. They haven't lost this ground. They've had to give up just to stay in supply at the end of this phase, but they haven't been forced back from here. They have they're being forced back, pressured back, but they still have control of this river line here, and they still have a line that runs all the way down here and all the way along here and along here up to Arras. So they've got a thinly stretched but viable line. There's not just a huge hole in the front where there's nothing and Germans streaming towards Amiens here. And there's reinforcements going to be arriving over the next couple of turns. So I don't think this has been a particularly successful attack. I think, that's hardly surprising when you don't know the rules and you don't know the exploits and you don't quite know the way to... You don't really know what odds you're looking for to get good attacks off. Obviously 6 to 1 is great, but what are you looking for? 3 to 1, 4 to 1? I think 3 to 1 is a break-even point on the combat tables, but the Germans have rolled some real rubbish even at higher odds and taken the worst of it.